Well, Chicago Wolves are off to a great start with 5 of a possible 6 points in their first 3 games. The Wolves are led by returning players Bradley Nadeau, Ryan Suzuki, Felix Unger Sörum, and Dominic Fensore. And they've added some exciting newcomers: Amir Miftakhov, Ivan Ryabkin, Yoel Nystrom, and Dominic Badinka. Joining me to talk about the quick start for the Wolves and what to expect in the coming month, I'm delighted to welcome back in our Chicago Wolves insider, Andrew Rinaldi. Hey, great to see you, Andrew.
Great to see you too, Tom. Feels like all's right in the world again when we're talking hockey here.
Well, for sure, particularly with the Wolves. Off to a great start. You really got to like the way they put this lineup together. A lot of great young kids for the Canes. For sure, they're loading up with some of these young studs, and we're seeing some excellent development with them, and some new players who we'll talk about as well. I took a look at the opening day lineup. It was kind of interesting. Couple of players not there right now. Juha Jaska, he's expected to come down and play with the Wolves. And of course, he'll be a great addition. And of course, Giovanni Smith actually passed through waivers, and he had an outstanding training camp with the Canes and was able to secure a 2-way deal with the Hurricanes. But some other things I saw that were interesting. Justin Robidas starting the season on right wing, kind of an interesting move there. Felix Unger Sörum, of course, is back on the right side, which we're excited about. Pavlichev, he finished last year quite well. He's the number 2 seed to start the season. So I thought that was interesting, and maybe we'll talk about that. And then we've got Gleb Trikozov and Ivan Ryabkin patrolling the fourth line for the Wolves. So that's a couple of pretty darn good players to be playing on your fourth line. So we'll talk about those guys. And the top pair to start the season was going to be Seeley and Nystrom. Of course, we know that Charles-Alexis was up with the Hurricanes, so he would normally probably sit in that spot alongside Dominic Fensore. And the other interesting move, Nikita Quapp starts the season with the Wolves, and we all were expecting Ruslan Kazeev to be holding that spot, particularly after his work in training camp. I thought he looked fantastic this year. And off he goes, and he's down with the Gargoyles in Greensboro. So that's interesting, the new ECHL team for the Canes. So some interesting moves on the lineup. What were your thoughts when you took a look at that opening day lineup?
Yeah, I'll start with the goaltending spot because I was expecting Ruslan to be up there in Chicago, but I don't. I think actually that him being down in Greensboro might be better for him at the moment, just for the sake that he's going to be getting a lot of ice time with the Gargoyles. And, when you're a young netminder, it's the best thing for your development is to just play. And, with Miftakhov in Chicago, and I assume at some point, whether, it's going to be Brandon Bussey or Caden Primo coming back in that 30-day window or however it may end up, that there might be another goaltender heading Chicago's way. So, for Kazeev, it's, get as much ice time as you possibly can early on in this year and just keep playing, keep doing his thing. I feel like last year, while he played pretty admirably for a teenage goalie, which you just don't see a lot in this league, you do kind of feel like it was a tough situation for Chicago in a lot of aspects with, having to, with Spencer Martin being called up and Kazeev not expecting to see as much ice time as he did to get as much ice time as he did. But he played well. I kind of feel like he was, thrown to the Wolves a little bit there to kind of
literally
pun intended bit. But I think him being in Greensboro is the best situation for him right now, and I liked Nikita Quapp for the little bit that we have seen him. I feel like again he's kind of in the similar situation that Ruslan was in last year, where it's like you kind of just sink or swim in that net sometimes, and I thought he did for what's been asked of him. He's looked pretty good in the net there.
Cool.
And then, some of the other notes, I know there's those two big veteran names that you mentioned earlier. I know Yaska is kind of dealing with an injury through the preseason. From what I heard, he's nearing a return, not quite ready to get in there yet. And interesting little wrinkle on Giovanni Smith. So, he had that great camp with Carolina. I thought he was going to make the team there for a second, earn the contract for sure, but now that he's signed that contract and he's getting paid as opposed to getting that PTO, he's working out some things with his work visa, which has kind of stalled his introduction to the lineup for the moment. Okay. But I expect Giovanni to be, once that's all cleared out, all that nasty, messy bureaucracy, he'll be in the lineup and can add another real tough customer to that Wolves forecheck, and I'm really looking forward to seeing that.
Looking at the start for the Wolves, they came out of the gate pretty fast. But what were you thinking as you watched these first three games, Andrew? What was going through your mind?
Yeah, particularly both of the Rockford games over their two home opening games.
Yeah.
I feel like the Wolves kind of like the first period, at least, just completely shot out of a cannon and, humming with pressure in the offensive zone, really keep pushing Rockford up on their heels. But kind of as these games kind of go on, keeping to maintain that pressure, I feel like was kind of a bit of a struggle for this team. Now, okay. I'll preface that by saying, between Nick Lardis, who currently is leading the league in points, between Oliver Moore, who's a first-round pick that I don't really expect to be in Rockford for a while, this is a really good team with the Ice Hogs that I think is kind of a good early season benchmark from like what's this team going to do, how are they looking, and where do they stack up. It cost them in Saturday's game where you feel like they had a ton of shots, but kind of fell behind the eight ball on the scoreboard. And then on Sunday's game, they come out to a 3-0 lead just 7 minutes in.
Right.
Then by the second period, they're down 4-3. And thankfully, they were able to rally back and win that one by a 6-5 shootout. But I feel like they jump out with that early momentum and that hunger, and whether it's responding to the other team's punch or just kind of keeping your foot on the gas, it's early. It's game 3. I'm not going to make any oversweeping generalization, but it's going to be definitely, I think, a point of emphasis for this coaching staff to kind of, maintain that. You get a 3-goal lead and you're carrying the play. Well, don't just sit back and let this game come to you. Keep the pressure on. I've always said that the best defense is keeping the puck 200 feet away from your net in the other team's zone. So it's just early observations but you can't really complain with their at least with the pressure that they've been able to kind of keep with the puck possession and the offensive zone has been early on. The returns, I think, have been great. So like there's a nice big green flag there. It's just let's see it consistently done throughout the 60 minutes of gameplay.
Well, as we've talked about, a very young team, and they're going to have to learn their lessons as well. I mean, some of them playing pro hockey for the first time, and it's quite a different game than whether they're playing college or junior or whatever, or playing overseas. So, not surprised they got some early challenges that way. But one of the players that has gotten off to a great start, no surprise, is of course Bradley Nadeau. Now, Nadeau had a great camp. In fact, I think a lot of Canes fans were wondering why he wasn't kept with the team. And interestingly enough, McKean said this about Nadeau going into the season, which I thought was quite appropriate. And they said He's simply too good to play another year in the AHL. He obliterated the competition, scoring 30 goals and finishing among the league's top scorers. His shot is elite. He froze AHL goalies with wristers, snapshots, one-timers, deflections, and even one off the skate. I think it's brilliant. Anyway, we've talked so much about Bradley, but what are you seeing so far this season?
Yeah, for anyone who hasn't heard, there was an interesting little clip from the Wolves broadcast that Bradley spent some time this offseason training in Nova Scotia with Sidney Crosby, Nathan McKinnon, and Brad Marchand. I don't know if you heard about those guys.
That's quite a group.
And he was doing 2-on-1 drills with Crosby. And he's thinking in his head, and this is understandable, okay, you're doing a drill, you got Sidney Crosby on your rush with you got to feed him the puck, right? And after the drill, Sidney goes to Bradley and says, if I had your shot, I'd shoot. I wouldn't pass to me. And this is coming from Sidney Crosby, the guy who's going to end up in the hockey Rushmore when it's all said and done.
Of course, Hall of Fame, sure.
So, yeah, I kind of feel, okay, yeah, this, what more does he kind of have to prove in this league? And I get he's got all these goals and everyone and their sister who saw the lacrosse goal on Sunday. I think you guys call it the Svechnikov around here.
Or the Michigan,
exactly. Yeah, and he just absolutely lit the internet on fire, and it was incredible. And that stuff, is just indicative of the kind of skill that he brings to the table. But what I like to see over, at least over this last weekend, is the stuff that kind of rounds him into a complete player, because we all know the shot, we all know what he can do with that. But it's going to be how else can he fit into a 200-foot well-rounded game that's going to that's the difference between having a Martin Ferk who can fire the puck 100 miles an hour, but he's spent 10 years in the AHL and can't crack a lineup in here, versus a guy who's going to spend a 10, 12-year career in the National. And what I saw from him, one, was on Sunday creating the game-winning goal by a strong forecheck that created a turnover.
Yeah.
Puck pops out to Ryan Suzuki. Boom, it's in the back of the net. Guess what? That's a win. And penalty kill time. He's been spending a lot of time there on the PK, and the coaching staff's going to tell him, like, okay, this is you're not the trigger man in the power play when you're out here. This is how you're going to play it. This is what we expect from you here. So that way, when he goes to Carolina, he's already going to have that, that same coaching staff pushing the same lessons in through him. And it's just going to be a seamless transition to, instead of just being that one-way scorer and, there's no other real dimensions to his game. Now, Coach Brind'Amour can trust him in all situations. It can put him in with a bunch of different looks and different lines. And that's going to, like I said, be the difference between a guy who is, one-dimensional, might get a cup of coffee here and there, and another guy who's going to make a career out of this, and a franchise is going to see him as a cornerstone of the lineup for nearly a decade.
For sure. And we've talked about, some things on other podcasts where, he's showing a little bit more aggression this year, like using the body, going in on the forecheck. He's trying to get, Canes hockey into his blood, I guess, and I'm sure he'll do it. He's everywhere he's been successful, and I have every expectation he's going to be able to do this. And, he has that natural goal scoring ability that you don't teach. So I can just imagine him on the power play, which is the bane of the existence of the Carolina Hurricanes, certainly these days, putting a guy like Nadeau on that, on that left flank and let him just wail away, because there's nobody better that I've seen. He's just unbelievable over there and has some incredible accuracy as well. So, lots to talk about with Bradley. One of the players that I was really impressed with in the Canes camp and earlier camps this summer was Felix Unger Sörum. Unger Sörum's an interesting one, and we've talked a lot about him. 23, came to camp. Boy, he just wowed everybody. He was incredible. And a lot of folks felt like he was going to get a shot to actually play some games with the Canes. And he was another one of these phenoms coming over as a youngster. And gosh, Rod Brind'Amour was just waxing lyrical about this guy all the time. He sees the ice so well. He plays a very smart game. And he's, kind of been lost. Last year was a tough year for him, just 20 points. He was tried at center, didn't work out so well. And we kind of wondered what's the future holding for Felix. But I got to tell you, so far, so good from what I can see. What's going on with Felix?
Yeah, it felt like last year, you understand he's this 19-year-old kid, and it was going to take some time for him to adjust, but you were waiting, like you could see that the skill was there, and you're just waiting for that switch to kind of flick, and it throughout the year, again, there was flashes, but nothing that ever really kind of like brought everything all together for the young kid. Yeah. And right, I think some of it was, putting him there at center, and he's learning, a completely different position, and sometimes it's just a confidence thing. The kid's confident right now. He's got 3 goals, all on the power play in all 3 games, and he's been it's just, I don't necessarily want to say night and day, because again, you could see that the skill level was there, but you can feel that he feel like he's matured so much just over this one off season, and just making plays confident with the puck, and when you have that belief that, okay, every time I'm going to touch the puck, I'm going to make a play, as opposed to, I don't want to turn the puck over every time I have it. Like, it changes the makeup of a player so much, and you can see it reflect in their body language, and you can see he's fired away 3 goals, and he looks like he's about to light the world on fire every time he's got one in. So he had a great one on, I think it was Saturday's game, where Fensore had a nice keep at the blue line. Suzuki feeds Nadeau, and you're just expecting Nadeau to hammer that one-timer, and instead he feeds it to the bumper for Unger Sörum, and it's an easy tap-in. So, you see at this dynamic evolving form, and the fact that I don't even remember if he had 5 or 6 goals last year. I mean,
he did. He had
already have 3. To already have 3 compared to that, and the mentality to just grab it and fire it away. He made a great move on Sunday, had the puck in space, and again, when you have a guy with no confidence, you kind of feel like, should I pass this or whatever? And he
exactly.
Just fired. He just buried it, and it was great to see. I'm already loving what I'm seeing from him in 3 games compared to what I've seen last year, and you can already feel like the trajectory for this kid is just going to keep going up.
Well, the Canes had said some things about him as well going into the season, Andrew, and their concern was that he was a slight player, he wasn't a heavy player, and he's got the great skills, but he hadn't put it all together, and they just wondered if he was going to be able to get the trajectory up to the Canes and beat some of the other top prospects that the Hurricanes have. I think for me, watching him so far this season, I just see a different player, like you've said. Playing with the Canes in the exhibition games, and certainly in the prospect showcase, he's a guy that we know he sees the ice well. He thinks the game extremely well. He's happy to take the puck and move around with the puck. As you say, he's not afraid to make things happen. And one of the things I've seen that's a little bit different this year is he's firing the puck. And that's something that we haven't seen as much of in the past. And I think, he's bulked up a little bit. He's a little bit stronger. He's playing a heavier game. And he's had the skill. He just needs to put it all together. So I'm excited about Felix. A lot of folks were thinking he was the next star coming to the Canes, as you know, and we kind of, were disappointed last year with what we saw. But this is good news, and I think all good start for Felix. A couple of other guys I wanted to mention. Justin Robidas. He's impressed me every time I've seen him. He's a hardworking guy. He's on the wing this year. He had 20 goals last season. Had a solid camp, played some exhibition games, did not look out of place at all. What are we seeing with him?
Just everything from last year that we loved about this kid is just rolling right over into this year. And he's had, I want to say, like 10 chances to score over the weekend and just
wow.
didn't bury. I mean, that's the kind of thing that happens in this game, but just the fact that, I mean, again, he's everywhere. And I've spoken about his tenacity to get after the puck and to take it to the net. And it's been more of the same. And that's probably been the biggest compliment I can give to any kind of player. And especially in this league for, these young kids learning the pro game.
Yeah.
Is that he never really looked like a rookie last year. Is that he kind of had that intangible skill set and you knew what you were getting every shift, every game, every night out of him. And that's the kind of stuff that when a coach doesn't have to wonder, is he going to bring it tonight or is he isn't, that's how you get elevated in the lineup really quick. And he, got a spot up there in that top 6 and never really let go all of last year. So, I think we're used to seeing Nadeau and Suzuki with Yaska on that top line. But if Juha's not there, who better than to have other than Robidas up there on that top line with them? So they've looked as expected. They've looked great so far, and again, you just kind of expect it to continue at this point because he's set the standard.
Yeah.
So and isn't known to not ever reach that bar that he's already set for himself, which again is really impressive for a young player to be able to come up with that so consistently.
He always looks like he's more mature than the age-wise than he is. He just plays a smart game. He's out there killing penalties. He's taking the tough draws. Like he's just out there making it happen. And I'm delighted with his growth so far. He's another smaller player, but he plays bigger. He's a heavier guy. He's stocky, which helps him a lot. And we're going to keep an eye on Justin Robidas this year because I fully expect he's going to continue his step forward in the Canes farm system for sure. Now, one guy that was a bit of a surprise when they drafted him, he was a guy that I've talked a lot about because I was hoping they would draft him, and they did, is Ivan Ryabkin. Ryabkin, he kind of had a strange season last year. This is what McKean said about Ryabkin. They said 1 year ago, Ivan Ryabkin was being compared to other high-flying Russian offensive dynamos, Matvei Miftakhov and Ivan Demidov. That's pretty good company. Putting up 58 points as a 16-year-old in the MHL was an impressive feat, and naturally, everyone was expecting an even bigger offensive explosion. So he was a guy that, at different points, he was expected to be in the top, 10 or 15 in the draft. I mean, he was just incredible. And he did leave Russia. Things didn't go so well last year, and he went to the USHL with Muskegon and just tore that league up. So he's a guy that shows a lot. He had a great camp with the Canes. He's a stocky guy, too. He's 5'11", comes in at 205, so he plays a kind of a heavy game, and he likes to get in there and stick his nose in as well. So what are we seeing with Ivan in his first start here with the Wolves?
Yeah, he is. He's already got a man's body. It's and from what I've seen already, he's got the ability to be a very effective player with it. We saw game 1 against Iowa getting right into just that absolute melee that ensued at the end of the game there, and I love that energy and that fiery spirit. He's on a line with Yannick Turcotte right now. And
Yes.
Those two, no one's messing around with those two on the ice. But in terms of what I like out of his game, he earned his first assist of the season. I think it was on, I forget whose goal it was, but he wins an offensive zone faceoff and just goes right to the net, causes chaos. Shot from the point, goalie never saw it, in the net. And I think that's an element that was missing from last year's team.
Yeah.
Was not necessarily physicality, but just kind of a not even a willingness to get in someone's face, but like a drive to get in someone's face, And you already have one towering Russian and Nikita Pavlichev, who's up there in that top six. So then when you counter it with, Ryabkin's not 6'7", he's a different build for sure, but that tenacity to go in and just kind of create some carnage, and the fact that he has that size to really survive. There's no line. This is for a lot of 19-year-olds to come into this league who aren't really built into that grown frame yet. It can be really tough. I saw Jonathan Berggren in Grand Rapids, who had all the skill in the world, but just kind of getting over the physicality of it was very tough for him. Ryabkin doesn't care. He embraces that. And I love that mindset, because, when you can play like that, it shifts just entirely how your opponents play. Suddenly the defensemen are looking over their shoulders when you got your forecheck coming down on them, and that's how it, create turnovers and chances for your squad. And I think it's, the points are going to come as the year goes on. Again, he's down there in that fourth line. But if he keeps, the magical thing about this league is, like, if you just show up every night and you keep working and you keep putting it in, opportunities are going to arise for everyone in the lineup. And he's going to be one, I think, that when the opportunity rises, he's going to really have fun coming out of the party, and I don't think he's going to let go of that spot. So it's I'm keeping an eye on him for the rest of the season for sure.
Well, and he, even in the exhibition games, he wasn't shy to, get in there and try to make something happen, and certainly lay the body on quite a bit. I think in a couple of the games, he might have led the Canes in hits or was close to it. So it's good. One of his line mates, you talked about Yannick Turcotte, who's patrolling the left side. And on the right is, of course, Gleb Trikozov. We talked a lot about Gleb last year. Gleb had a super prospect showcase in 24. He came over and he had a hat trick in one game. He scored in another game. He just looked like, wow. And last year was just a tough season for him. He just didn't ever get started. I think he played 20 games or something. So he missed most of the season. So it was really a write-off for him. And he had come over along with Ruslan Kazeev as 19-year-old, youngsters coming over from Russia to play in North America. And one of the things about Gleb, as we talked about before too, Andrew, is that he hadn't really played any major hockey in Russia. So he had played a little bit in the VHL, which is like the AHL, not much, and mostly in the MHL, which is like junior. He didn't really get a good shot in the KHL. And quite often, players coming over have already played in the KHL. So they've got a little bit of play against men. So that's another thing he had to do, and he had to kind of get organized. And I know he got married, or his fiance came with him. So there were a lot of changes for him. But here's what the Canes had to say about Gleb as we get into this. And they said, Gleb Trikozov was one of the most intriguing and polarizing players of his draft class, which, to nobody's surprise, made him a perfect late second-round pick for the Canes. There were always concerns about Gleb's ability to translate his unorthodox offensive style to North America, and this setback during a key development year isn't ideal. Trikozov certainly has the shot, hands, and creativity to turn things around and earn a top 6 AHL role next year. So, Gleb, off to a quick start. He had a goal in the exhibition games with the Canes, and then he scored a goal already with Chicago. What are we thinking about with Gleb?
Yeah, I feel like, not that he kind of had to hit a reset button there, but, when you miss such a large portion of the year with a lower body injury as he did, it's just all that excitement that you have just kind of comes to a halt, and for it to be just so long term, it can on top of getting back physically to kind of where you should be on that developmental track, it can really hurt mentally as well, to just kind of keep centered and keep focused. And for Gleb, I mean, right, he had a big goal to open the scoring on Saturday, and he, there's a lot of talent in the lineup ahead of him for sure. But right, I do think he's got the skill to move his way on up and perhaps earn a bigger role as the year goes on. And for him, it's what happened. You can't no control over what happened to you last year, and you just kind of put it all on the back burner. This is a completely new opportunity ahead. I mean, it's you can kind of take it as a learning experience. Last year, he's still around the team and kind of getting used to his game and everything. And while I guess I don't want to say he's got like the training wheels on him still or anything, but right, he might not have as many minutes this year as he would have if he played all of last year.
Right.
But the the intangibles are there. The skill is there. I kind of like it that he's there with Ryabkin and Turcotte to kind of open the lanes up for him and just kind of Bruise Brothers his way out there for playing. And let's see what he can do. And right, like I said, the nature and the beauty of this league is that eventually, someone's going to get hurt or someone's going to get called up, and this power play that works so well here and there is going to have some openings, and he's going to get a guy that's called upon, and you get your opportunity, and you just gotta wait for whenever it could be. Next game, it might be in a couple of weeks, but you got to take it and you got to run with it. I think he's, early on, the early returns, big goal on Saturdays, looking good when he's out there. Last season's injury is in the past. It's out of his mind, and he's going to be moving forward and playing. I like what I see, and I think he's gonna turn some heads this year. I really do.
Well, and we remember he came over as a 19-year-old, so he's still very young. And I think it's great that he's on the fourth line. He's kind of sheltered a little bit, and he and Ryabkin can get some chemistry going. And as you said, with Turcotte on that other side, he's going to open up space for those guys for sure. And so I think this is a good opportunity for him to kind of just, start to build some confidence, have a little bit of success. I fully expect we're going to see a lot more of Gleb as this season goes on and into the future. He's a guy that I really am excited about him, as I am with Ryabkin. I think those two guys have got just tremendous potential. So I'm excited to hear he's off to a quick start, and he's back in full health. And of course, he's going to feel much more comfortable this year. He's been around for a while now, so it's not like he's just coming in a new place, new camp, and all that kind of stuff, which is hard for these youngsters. And we've certainly seen a little bit of that with Alex Nikita with the Canes as well. So, one last player on the forward side, just a minute on this guy, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Skyler Brind'Amour. Skyler, of course, created a bit of a stir with the Canes. He came up, looked pretty good. He was outstanding in the faceoff dot in the preseason. He played a fair bit of action. Certainly has the confidence of his dad, so that's a great thing. He plays a very similar game. He's a heavy player on the defensive side. He's great in the faceoff dot. He's going to score the odd goal for you. Again, he's going to be a key part of this Wolves team this year. So what are we seeing with Skyler?
Yeah, what I love about Skyler Brind'Amour is that, I mean, one, he's a lot kind of like Justin Robidas in the fact that, he's got a standard that he sets and meets really every night. You don't have to worry like, oh man, is Skyler going to show up tonight, And he just... I know it's kind of stereotypical because who his dad is and everything, but he plays so much. Like I grew up watching the Red Wings in Carolina going at it in the Stanley Cup Finals in 2002, and he's that same style of player. Maybe he might not have the offensive tools that Rod had, but I never remember Rod being a powerhouse scorer, even though he could put the puck in the net. But I remember Rod being that menace in the face-off dot, and that guy on the penalty kill who was just like a thorn in your side, and just being all over the ice so responsibly. And Skyler is just he's a carbon copy of his dad in that way, and I mean that with the utmost respect. And it's been great to know that you have a rock like that to kind of solidify your middle six, to have a guy on the penalty kill that you can, that's just so reliable. And it's I feel like I have to apologize every time talking about him, because when he first came to Chicago, I'm like, oh wow, like here's a guy who's just here for his name. And then we saw him play, and I was like, oh wow, this kid, he's got some game to him. It's great. So I'll forever be apologizing to him for that. But yeah, he keeps bringing that on the special team side, and it's been a treat to be able to watch him like that, because I feel like when the team's down and the stakes are up, I feel like he takes another step to his game. And that kind of energy is infectious through the lineup. And I think Chicago's they've had a strong, I think they gave up one power play goal against Rockford, but early on they've had a very strong penalty kill, and I think he's been a big part of that for sure. Absolutely.
Well, and of course, he teams up with Josiah Slavin, so it's kind of nice to see the connection there as well. I've been a big fan of Skyler's. He had a tough start in the pros with Charlotte. He didn't do much. Of course, he had been on that championship team with Quinnipiac, so pretty good start. But I've really been impressed with his work ethic. As you say, when he's on the ice, you're not going to be hurt while he's out there. He's going to get the odd goal or make something happen offensively. So he's kind of like he's a bit of a Jordan Stahl in some ways, like in the way he plays. And I've said certainly on other stormTracker podcasts that, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a cup of coffee with the Canes this year. If certain injuries happen and they need that kind of profile, I would not at all be reluctant to bring up Skyler Brind'Amour. So yeah, I'm with you. I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do with Chicago this year. And clearly the Wolves are going to be pushing hard for the Calder Cup. So he's a guy that can make a difference for you in the forward side. Wrapping up the forwards, I just wanted to mention a couple of guys that got deals with the Wolves, and we did see them in the prospect showcase. Blake Biondi was an interesting one to me. This is a guy that was drafted in the 4th round by the Canadiens in 2020. He was the Minnesota Mr. Hockey Award winner in 2020, and that's an award that's given annually to the outstanding senior high school boys hockey player in the state of Minnesota. This is a pretty lofty award for this guy. Last year with UND, had 27 points in 38 games in the NCAA. So he's a guy that, again, 23 years old. He's a little older, but when I saw some of his work in the Canes camp, he looks like a player. I was quite impressed with him. The other one was Evan Vierling. Vierling, another 23-year-old. He's a guy that played with the Barrie Colts. And you know that, of course, Andrei Svechnikov played with the Colts. A lot of players have come out of that system. And he was a 5th rounder with the Rangers. Again, he was in the ECHL last year. Have you seen anything with these two guys?
Yeah, Biondi, he played the first game in Iowa, but he didn't make the lineup in neither of the Rockford games. Saw about 7 games of him last year, I want to say, in Chicago. I can't really say I dislike his game at all. I'm sure he's seeing probably bottom line minutes there in those few games, and those a couple shifts against Iowa. Doesn't look out of place, I would say, for that much. Vierling, I think, has been more involved. On top of being in all 3 games, I think he's definitely been more noticeable, especially physically along the boards. I've liked that aspect of his game that he brings. Again, I think that certain attitude is kind of missing from last year's, as I mentioned before, from last year's team. So seeing when you do see more of it, it kind of tends to pop out at you. So I've liked what Vierling's been able to bring. I think they elevated him recently up to the second line, if
Yes.
I recall correctly. So, if you play well, and again, like I said, if the coaches know that they can trust you, it doesn't matter if you're a first round pick or if you're a guy kind of scrapping through on a tryout. If the coaches can trust you, they're going to move you up in the lineup, and you're going to see more and more ice. So I hope to see more of Vierling and Biondi. I would, I like seeing these guys that you don't always hear their name often, and they make opportunities of it. I mean, look at Yannick Turcotte. No one had even heard of him going into last year, and he's a fan favorite in Chicago.
For
so I hope one of these guys can maybe not be the fighter that Yannick is, but they can find a way to impact the game in another way and become another fan favorite here for the Wolves.
Yeah, and with the Wolves, it's nice for them to have a couple of players or some players that are under contract to them, because they are going to see players going back and forth with the Hurricanes, and some of these guys like Vierling and of course Blake Biondi, they're going to get chances, as you say, through the season, and hopefully they can step up their game and contribute as well. So that's the forward side. I want to spend just a few minutes on the D corps. Of course, Charles-Alexis is up with the Hurricanes. What have you seen with the D corps in general so far?
Yeah, I want to preface it by saying I do think Rockford is supremely talented and will be one of the better teams in the Central this year. But I think kind of part of what helped contribute to maybe this team kind of not slamming the door and finishing on some of these hot starts is, maybe I don't want to again make it seem like I'm trashing on a bunch of young kids or anything, but they kind of, especially in that Sunday game, kind of taking it, getting taken a task by Rockford, which again, when you got guys like, Oliver Moore, I don't even know what he's doing in this league. He's very Nadeau-like in the fact that he makes a play every time he touches the puck. But regardless, he's here, and I think it's good for some of these young kids to be exposed to that. That these are going to be the kind of guys that you're going to be seeing up at the next level for sure. And it's just kind of, I've got the kind of feeling, when one thing leading to another, where like one breakdown happens and someone's trying to recover off of that. Next thing you know, the guy behind you is wide open for a backdoor tap in. And which, again, this is another one of those things where I'm not going to hit the panic button after 3 games on here, especially, Nystrom only had a handful of games last year, right. and kind of getting pushed up into the top line with Charles-Alexis getting called up. Now he's been called up, so they're going to be even a little thinner on that blue line. But certainly, it's all stuff that's correctable for this young group, and some things, it might be good for them in the long run to be like, hey, you kind of got smacked around here. Good. Now we can, go hit the video room, break down what you guys, might have missed out on. And, when you got a guy like Spiros Anastas coaching up this young D corps, I truly believe that he's gonna, as the season goes on, he's gonna get these guys kind of corrected and playing a solid brand of hockey that, especially when it comes from the blue line, we know that Carolina is famous for, and we know that they're going to inject that same style and that same system down here in Chicago. And so I'll chalk it up to, opening weekend jitters and a really good opponent on the other side as well. So I think this group, especially on defense, is going to be all right.
Well, there's some real talented youngsters for sure. Charles-Alexis is already up with the Canes and has not looked out of place at all. And now Yoel Nystrom heads up. And you've got Dominic Fensore and Dominic Badinka also with the Wolves. And we'll talk a little bit about these guys. Yoel Nystrom is a guy I've talked a lot about in some other podcasts. He's a guy that played almost 5 seasons in Farjestad's in the SHL. So he's been playing, against men forever. And he's a guy that, as you say, had a cup of coffee with the Wolves 4 games last year. I don't think he has looked out of place at all in the exhibition games with the Canes. In fact, I was quite impressed with him. And I think there was a lot of comments by the announcers as well saying some good things about Nystrom, and the fact that he's been recalled suggests that's just the case. In fact, Nick Bass had some interesting things to say about Nystrom. Nick, of course, with Canes prospects, and he said he's a two-way monster. He leads a power play unit for Farjestad as well as being a primary penalty killer. This was at the start of last year. He earned a contract with the Canes, and he has a sneaky chance at being an NHL defenseman due to his 200-foot play, and it could be there sooner than you might think. So that's interesting words coming from Nick. And I just like the way he plays. He's not a big player, but he's very smart. He sees the ice extremely well. What have you seen with Yoel when you've watched him with the Wolves?
200-foot player that's very smart. If that doesn't scream a guy out of the Carolina system, I don't know what to tell you. But he, you kind of bore it all right there. And, for as little time as he's been here in Chicago to be elevated to the role that he had early on, to get the early call up after Legault, kind of shows where he's at with his game, how much the coaching staff trusts him with his game. And again, it might not be the flashiest that gets all the highlights and all the numbers and everything, but it's the one that the coaches rely on to put you out there for 20 minutes at a time. It's just money for a defenseman. And to be able to be relied upon in all situations, I don't have to worry, oh man, if we're going to put him in our own zone in a face-off, we're going to get eaten up if we lose the draw. So it's I've really enjoyed what I've seen from him so far. I saw the call up today and I was like, oh, we're going to be a little thinner in Chicago, but you love to see. You love to see opportunities for these guys, and you want to see how they approach it. Are they going to be kind of timid and reserved? Hopefully not. They're going to be jumping in for the opportunity, being I'm in the national. Let's go. Let's get after it. And we saw that with Legault. I think one game, and Canes fans are already starting to really enjoy him. So sure. It's I would like them back, please, at some point. If we can get a couple of guys, you can have your fun. I would, at least for the playoffs. But it's super reliable in every end, and like I said, the coaches know that. That's why he's earned his ice time and earned this call up as well.
Well, and Nystrom is part of a group that's been toiling over in Europe. I think about Noel Franson and Simon Forsmark, both in Sweden. Those two guys are not far off either. And boy, I tell you, you look at the depth of the Canes, it's fantastic. Now, one of the guys I wanted to mention, because I mention him every time, he's one of my favorite players with the Chicago Wolves, and I'm probably going to talk about Dominic Fensore because I think Dom's incredible. He had a solid camp. He's a guy that, to me, just keeps getting better all the time. He plays way bigger than he is. He kills penalties. He's on the power play. What else can you ask Dom to do? And I thought it'd be good to look at what McKean said, because it just keeps making me feel better all the time. Dominic Fensore stands at just 5'9", but his offensive impact far outweighs his frame. Fensore's best trait is his superb skating, which allows him to turn the puck up ice and create odd man advantages, close gaps, and win races on defense. And we see that every time we see him play. He just and he's a smart player. Gosh, I remember when I first saw him in one of the prospect showcases about 3 years ago, and I just raved about. He had just come out of Boston U, and I just raved about Fensore. I just thought, man, this guy, he just looks the part. Is he continuing to be that player?
Absolutely. Oh yeah. And I think last year it was Scott Morrow was the power play quarterback. When he was in the lineup, it was he was running the show from the top of the key there. And now it's Dom. And how well has he done to kind of step out of Scotty's shadow? Well, I mean, he's just leading the team in points currently, so I guess that's not bad for a defenseman. And now I think, I mean, he was here for the independent year. Carolina loaned him to the Wolves as well, so now he's entering his third season in Chicago. He's familiar with every nook and cranny around there at Allstate, and he's just continuing to kind of just keep that upward trajectory of his, as we've talked about quite so often with him, and just smooth skating. I love to see him even without the puck to be able to move it the way he does. It adds a dynamic to your blue line that other teams have to game plan for, and it changes how comfortably you move in transition if you got a guy like Fensore back there who can make it pay if you're not careful and you're not watching the trailer coming in from the neutral zone. So it's and right, you there's always that stereotype of that undersized defenseman of like, oh, he's just going to get bullied. This guy's a bulldog. I've seen him take on guys that are quite maybe not heavyweights, but they can hold their own for sure. And he doesn't back down from anyone. And that's kind of what you need from a guy. If you're not going to have that Charles-Alexis Legault frame, you gotta be able to. You can't back down from anyone, especially in this league. They'll just eat you alive in the corners, in front of the net, and in the scrums. They'll find ways to just kind of get in your head. And if you're playing scared, you might as well just go home. So he comes out, he brings it every night. It's one of my favorite attributes about him. And it's if you think you're just gonna push him around just because he might not be as tall as you got another thing coming. It's gonna come at you in a hurry, and before you realize, you're either on your backside or the puck's in the net. And you can't really ask for anything more from a guy who's really kind of your number one defenseman for the foreseeable year.
Yeah, and he comes from it honestly. He was captain at Boston, and he was a guy that was right there in the Hobie Baker voting as well. He's a guy that certainly was an outstanding collegiate player, and I've enjoyed watching him all the time. He just he excites me when he's on the ice. He's making things happen, and he sees the ice so darn well. He just likes to connect on those passes and get things moving. So I'm going to be watching Don. I hope he gets a cup of coffee with the Canes, or at some point, I hope he gets an opportunity to come into the NHL, because I think he's definitely earning the right as he continues to improve his play. One other guy in the blue line, just to wrap it up, wanted to mention Dominic Badinka. The reason I brought up Dom was, again, 19 years old. This guy comes over. I thought he looked very mature in the exhibition games that he played in with the Canes. I thought he's not flustered by anything. He just goes about his business. He was solid, smart, got the puck out, careful to make sure that he was looking after his defensive responsibilities in a good way. So far, so good with Dominic?
Yeah, I had to actually kind of check his elite prospects page to make sure that this kid was actually 19, because I was kind of surprised by just how poised he is, with the puck, without the puck. There's not a whole lot of just kind of those youthful jitters in his game, which is great, which is what you want to see. There's going to be some growing pains here and there for sure. As a young kid like him just kind of rounds into his game and gets into his first real big pro season out here in North America. But man, for those couple of games I think he had last year, and to start off this year, I'm impressed. to the point where, when you get those call ups like you do now with Legault and Nystrom coming up, you wonder who's going to be the guy to reach out and grab those opportunities, which, again, I've said a million times already. This is just the nature of this league.
Yes.
Is someone gets called up, next guy, no team in this league is going to feel sorry for your guys getting all called up to the national, because everyone is going to deal with it at some point. So, as we don't know how long these guys are going to be up there, so here's your chance. You're probably going to get slotted up. I mean, if he gets paired up there with Fensore at the top, or however Coach Anastas wants to approach it, the chances there, and I think he's got the tool set. I think he's got the mindset to take it and to really, really kind of run with it to make a big impact for this team. Which is, again, it's still crazy for me to say this about a 19-year-old defenseman in this league. This is a tough league for teenagers. We've seen Bradley Nadeau make it look like it's so nonchalant to put up 30 goals, but teenagers aren't supposed to come into the AHL and look this good. It's just not supposed to happen. So, I'm not going to say that Badinka is also going to light the world on fire, but you see the promises in his game. You see the smarts and how he carries himself, and you want to see it. And there's an opportunity ahead of him to do more with it, with the gaps in the lineup now caused by the call ups. So
for sure,
I think we're just a couple games here into the season here, but he's a guy that's got a long runway ahead of him, and it's just he's just only beginning to take off with his game.
Yeah, and he's played in the SHL last year, and I think part the year before with Momo. So he's been playing against men, which is great. McKean said an interesting thing. They said there's still things to work on, but his projection to the NHL still looks good. So definitely, sure, he's a young player. He's got some areas to work on, but I like what I saw with him, and like you, I hope he gets a lot more opportunity here because I think he's going to surprise a lot of folks with what he can do. Exciting things with that decor, and boy, a lot of talent there, a ton. And we'll be watching it as the season goes on. The Canes made a decision in the summer to sign a veteran goalie out of Russia, Amir Miftakhov. Miftakhov, he's a friend of Andrei Svechnikov. It turns out they're buddies. Miftakhov had played over actually in North America for one season. He'd been drafted by the Tampa Bay Lightning, ended up playing in Syracuse, and then actually in the AHL, and then down to Orlando in the ECHL. It didn't go that well, and he decided to go back to Russia, and he played with Akbars. Actually played very well the last 3 or 4 seasons in the KHL and got the deal with the Canes. He had a terrible, awful training camp. Like the games that he played, he was just shelled. And so, everybody wondering, what's the deal with Miftakhov? Is he going to be somebody that can be counted on in Chicago or not? What's going on with Amir?
Yeah, he, I'm not sure if I would have thrust him into the number 1 role going into the season. Again, I think we might have been expecting Caden Primo to be there instead. Well, the Toronto Maple Leafs had something to say about that, so it fell upon Miftakhov, and against Iowa, looked good against Iowa. Iowa's not has historically been just bottom of the barrel for the last couple of years, so looked good. Something to build on. And then the Rockford game that he played on Sunday, he started off not again. It was kind of a mirror of the preseason. I think he had trouble tracking the puck. The one goal by Lardis, yes, it was a quick release. Kind of thought that it was a little out there. Maybe probably should have had his glove on it, but as just what makes this game so funny is that in that third period on Sunday, Rockford was didn't really generate a whole lot of offense. They just struck whenever they had it. And then in the third period, it was just chance and chance and chance and chance and chance. And Miftakhov, I feel like he still kind of looked uncomfortable in his crease, but he managed to make every single save in the third period and come away with the win. And then at the end of the game, Brett Sini, who's just known for running into goalies and getting in the goalies' heads and just being an absolute menace to goalies, puts the puck into the net after the final whistle goes, and there's a bit of a scrum, and then you see Miftakhov going over there to talk to him, and you're like, do we have just another feisty Russian netminder who's going to try and fight everyone at this chance? Because, I mean, Kochekov was just the absolute belle of the ball down here in Chicago, and I think fans were kind of hoping for more of that. But, I think for Miftakhov, it's just going to have to, it's a mental position to be a goaltender, and for him, it's going to have to just be, to focus on just getting settled in. And you just got to focus, just worry about the game in front of you and focus on excuse me, on getting the stops. And I have confidence in him and in the goaltending coach, Stan Dubicki, who's been in Chicago for what feels like forever, who's coached between Kochekov and Alex Lyon and Jordan Binnington and this, that, and the other thing. That he can make it work, and he's shown that he can work with goalies from Russia who might not even have the language barrier there, but the universal language is stopping the puck. And I think Miftakhov will be okay in the long run. Would I maybe appreciate a Brandon Bussey or a Caden Primo coming back down in the long term? Sure, but as it is. It's his crease, and I think I think he'll be okay in the long run. Might not be the prettiest, but teams find ways to win in this league all the time, and Chicago's got the capacity to do it. And if he makes unorthodox stops and keeps the puck out the way he did against Rockford, who's to say it won't work? So. It might be a ride, but it's going to be a fun ride.
Well, it's interesting. He is a smallish goalie. Yeah, he checks in at 6 feet and 180 pounds. So that's unusual. The Canes, of course, have been getting these big goalies. The Canes have really hung their hat with Russian goaltenders. Of course, it's been an incredible goalie factory. Several top goalies in the NHL, of course, coming out of Russia. And, they've got Pyotr Kochekov with the big club. We talked about Ruslan Kazeev. There's Semyon Frolov, who they drafted this year, who looks like he's going to be a player. There's Yegor Velmakin. I mean, there's a bunch of guys that they've got coming that are, really high potential goaltenders and big guys. They're all big 6'4", 6'5" type goaltenders. So it's exciting. So it's interesting to see Miftakhov here. And then Nikita Quapp, who we talked about earlier. Interesting with Quapp, playing in Germany, wasn't in the top league. Not a lot. You don't hear a lot about Nikita, but Nick Bass was talking about something that happened in the World Juniors a couple of years ago, and he said, anytime I want to watch a goalie attempt a heroic performance, I think about those Germany versus Canada games at the World Junior Championship, where Quapp was unreal. And he says if he gets consistent time, he's got real NHL potential. The interesting thing was we saw him in some exhibition games with the Canes. So they had signed him to a deal. They give him a shot. He's a guy that you never really know what he's going to do. And it'll be interesting to see how Nikita Quapp kind of fares with the Wolves.
Yeah, it's a funny thing about goalies. It's just their development isn't always kind of linear. It's not always just going to go up like that. It can go. It's a volatile position, and like I said, a lot of it just so much is mental. being in the right situation and having the right coaching and just everything just in between the ears. I mean, we all know kind of what everything that we all deal with on a day-to-day basis. Well, then throw in 100-mile-an-hour shots coming at you. It's difficult, and I think he, for all intents and purposes, I think he played well enough. It might not read a lot on the stat sheet about Saturday. I mean, there was a chance with Nick Lardis on the doorstep with 2 seconds left, and he made a nice toe drag move and was in front of Quapp with about 5 feet in front of him. Made the stop, and I feel like the goals that he did give up, not a whole lot of opportunity for him. Couple backdoor tap ins, especially the overtime winner. I mean, 4-on-3 power play in overtime. It's hard to fault a goalie for one of those. So it's it might be another kind of situation like we had with Ruslan last year, where it's it's a tough position for a kid like him. You might have preferred to have him acclimated down there in Greensboro and kind of get more time and develop that way. But this is the situation you're in now, kid. So it's I'm excited kind of to see as the year goes on what he's capable of, how he handles that kind of adversity, because like I said, no one's going to feel sorry for you. Oh, you have to play a young goaltender? Oh, that's tough. Here's a list of franchises that only have young goaltenders to pick. So it's I think he's going to have a good situation in Chicago where he doesn't have to bear the full brunt of any of the starts or anything. He's going to at least have Miftakhov in there to kind of insulate him, just kind of learn and do his thing. And you're right, if it's such a strange position to project sometimes, and all you can do is put him out on the ice and see what you got from him. There's early signs that we saw on Saturday that say, okay, this kid might be good. He might be good. But you can only tell so much from a game. So there's a lot. He's got a lot ahead of him, and I'm interested to see how he responds to these challenges.
Well, and I fully expect he'll get probably an opportunity in Greensboro. They might flip flop he and Ruslan Kaziv at different points, just so he gets lots of playing time, because of course they're going to want him to play too. The interesting thing with the Canes, you talked a lot about Stan Dubicki. Of course, he's legendary, as you said. He's incredible. But the Canes also have Tom Barrasso, who and Cam Ward, who do a lot of work with their young goaltenders as well. So they'll be helping guys like Nikita Quapp and Ruslan Kaziv as they continue to grow in the Canes or in the Wolves and Gargoyles scenario. Hey, as we wrap up, I just wanted to ask you a quick question here as we go and say, what are you going to have your eyes on as you look at the next month ahead? What do you think? What do you think we should be looking for?
Yeah, this early in the season, it's all just kind of, we've seen everyone kind of get off to their starts. And the blue line, of course, as we talked about, is a big point of emphasis, just because, you have two guys that are so reliable, not just, defensively, offensively, everywhere.
Yeah.
And they're gone. So we talked a lot about Badinka. I enjoy Alexei Himosalmi there. Who's gonna rise up and be a player for this team with the added ice time? Obviously, again, we've spoken a lot of Bradley Nadeau. I mean, we can talk about him all day and every day for sure. I feel like, with in this league, it's not a big surprise to see a whole lot of roster turnover year after year. There wasn't a whole lot of there's 15 guys in the starting lineup that were here last year, which is quite a lot, So what I kind of want to see is, this team, I think, had a good regular season last year. I know that the coach Abbott and a lot of the guys in that locker room were disappointed with how the play-in round went
Right.
with the sweep to Rockford. So, but there's a lot of good building blocks in that foundation, and over the next month, you're going to want to see where this team kind of took a lot of those lessons from last year, a lot of the lessons from the first 3 games, and how they continue to build on that and continue to create something that's going to, I feel like this is going to be a really tough division this year. Grand Rapids looks really good. Rockford looks really good. There's not really going to be, okay, Iowa's there, who's kind of terrible, but everywhere else, Milwaukee is always in the mix, no matter if they have a bunch of studs or whether it's a bunch of no names. They're a really good coach hockey team. This is going to be a tough division to play in consistently. And so it's going to be a challenge every night, whether it's you're going to have to worry about this guy or that guy, and how this team rises to those challenges and presents the other team with challenges. Hey, we got a bunch of studs on our side too. How are you going to approach and beat us? And just continuing to see the kids grow and round their games out. Again, kind of a big theme of this one is we know that you're capable of doing A. How much can we rely on you in doing B and C? So I'm looking forward to a lot of that, and just if seeing Nadeau's goal all over the internet didn't get you jazzed up for Wolves hockey, I don't really know what to tell you other than maybe you need to go to a doctor and get your pulse checked or something like that.
Well, for sure, and the other thing that I've been kind of watching as well. Of course, Cam Abbott had his first season with the Wolves, and he was cutting his teeth as well with the American League team and learning the Kane system and so on. And I think I expect a lot more from him in terms of his ability to develop these players as well. So, yeah, looks like it's going to be a great season. It's going to be tough for sure because players are going to get called up and there'll be all kinds of situations. But anyway, we're going to be right there with it. And as always, it's great talking Wolves hockey with you, Andrew. It's your knowledge is fantastic, and sharing it with all of our fans is just wonderful. And where again can they find you?
Thank you very much for that. You can find me on OnTap Sports Network. That's it's a Chicago-based media outlet. So if you're ever curious about the Blackhawks or the Bulls for whatever reason, we got you covered. And you can find me on I'm still going to call it Twitter. I'm never going to call it X. It's always going to be Twitter to me. At Andrew_Rinaldi_. I provide updates on the team. I tweet live during the games about what's going on and share content and post my articles and chat with the fans, and I continue to say this from day one I'll say it until I'm dead in the ground. I love talking about this game and I love sharing it with fans. So if you have any questions, if you have any observations or any players or the team or anything, I'm always available, and I enjoy sharing it with the fans of Chicago, of Carolina, fans all over. It's great. I've met a fan from Russia who's I completely unrelated and talking about like the growing up with the 5 Russian players in Detroit and how they helped shape my my love for the game. So being able to find those connections with people in this world, it's why I do what I do. So don't be afraid to reach out.
Well said. And for those of you who've been watching or listening, of course, Andrew and I are delighted that you spent time with us. If you have any comments or questions, as Andrew said, we'd love to hear from you. So please, put them in the comment box down below, and we'll try to respond just as quickly as possible. If you like this episode, please press the like button. And of course, if you want to be alerted of future episodes of stormTracker and hear more about the Chicago Wolves in the future, along with Canes prospects and of course our regular Carolina Hurricanes podcasts, please press the subscribe button and hit the bell, and you'll be made aware just as soon as those are available. Once again, Andrew and I thank you very much for spending time with us, and we look forward to getting together with you real soon right here on stormTracker.